It's not on the screen, but are we ready?
Oh, the TV might have turned off. I'll fix that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it is 9:32. We will call our meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In our prayer for the morning, Heavenly Father, we beseech your divine guidance in this meeting. Keep us ever mindful of our obligations. Grant us, dear Lord, wisdom, tolerance, and courage, that we may well serve our county and fulfill our trust. Amen.
Amen.
Steve, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure. Move to approve the minutes of May 11th.
Second?
Thank you, thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any corrections, changes? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes. And we will move into our resolutions. First up, we have Andy Conrad, our county engineer, and Andy in the flesh.
Morning.
Good morning.
I have 4 resolutions for your consideration this morning. They're all for road closures for culvert replacements. First being on Bear Swamp Road, the second being Congress Road, the third being Holshoe, and the fourth one is Wandell.
Move to approve the 4 resolutions.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Okay, and the weekly permit list is
Thank you.
there.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Andy. Next up, we have Amy Lyon-Galvin, our Assistant County Administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning, Amy.
I have 7 resolutions for your consideration this morning. The first one is amending the appropriation measure resolution. The second is amending the 2021 appropriations resolution by transferring appropriations. The third is expenditure adjustments for various funds. The fourth is cash transfer for various funds. The fifth resolution is approving the Medina County Drug Advisory Committee McDAC grant funding for fiscal year 21-22. These are the amounts presented last week during discussion session. Resolution number 6 is allowing expenses of county officials. This is for the sanitary engineer to attend their in-person summer meeting in Columbus. And the 7th resolution are claims for the week in the amount of $1,080,516.44.
Move to approve the 7 resolutions.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Next, we have Holly Mirren, our Human Resources Director. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning. On our personal changes resolution today, we have a new hire in Human Resources, 5 rate increases, 1 in transit, 1 in maintenance, 1 in building, 1 in commissioners, and 1 in finance, 1 leave of absence in sanitary, 1 return from leave in transit, 2 resignations, 1 in sanitary and 1 at the county home. Second resolution is amending the table of organization for the maintenance department, sanitary engineer, and office for older adults.
Move to approve both resolutions.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Next, we have Scott Miller, our County Administrator.
Good morning.
Morning, Scott.
I have 2 resolutions for you today. The first resolution is authorizing the acceptance of the guaranteed maximum price number 1. This is for the Medina County Courthouse project. The maximum price for this phase of the project is set at $2,141,646. And what this includes is it includes all of the mobilization, so it includes like the fencing and the ramp and preparation of the movement of the utilities, preparation of the staging area. The fencing is about $228,000. The electrical relocation is $86,000, almost $86,007. The remaining about $1.7 million of that are general conditions for Gilbane. That includes like trailer rentals, utilities, dumpsters, everything that they need to actually do the project, including like bonds. So the guaranteed price number 2 will include the concrete, the steel, and the actual excavation of the site. We will get that on or around June 21st. And then the final guaranteed maximum price will be August 21st is when we should receive that. So, and the estimate for the price, the guaranteed maximum price, is about just under the $30 million. So what they found is the material costs are going up, but companies out there are desperate for work. There's not a lot of commercial construction, so they're coming in at very reasonable rates.
Good.
It's exciting to be doing it at the right
So
time.
the sooner we can get it
Yeah.
done, the more money we'll save in the long
Yeah.
run.
Yes. So then the second resolution is authorizing agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management. This is for the sale of county vehicles. So in the past, we've sold vehicles that we were disposing of in different ways. We actually had an auction at the impound lot. The attendance was fair to just fair, and vehicles would be sold, for mostly less than $1,000. Sometimes a truck or something would go for a couple $1,000s. A couple years ago, Mike Pataki entered into an agreement with Cleveland Auto Auctions, and we started taking vehicles up there, and we were getting additional money for those vehicles, so between $1,000 and $2,000, maybe more. Enterprise, they actually have national vendors that they sell to. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to go ahead and try and sell some of our vehicles through them. And this is an agreement that allows us to do that at a cost of like $395 per vehicle. So hopefully we'll try it out. We'll see if we get more money than what we were getting at Cleveland Auto Auction. And if we don't, we'll go back to Cleveland Auto Auction.
So are they auctioning it off, or they just offer it to a broader audience?
They auction it off, but it's to a broader audience.
Okay.
Better attendance.
Yeah, it's national,
Good.
so.
Move to approve both resolutions.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Handley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Next up, Jeremy Cinco, our county sanitary engineer.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
5 resolutions today. The first is awarding the bid for the Sharon North Pump Station renovation project. The second is authorizing change order number 1 for the Medina Road water main relocation project for Express Underground. Number 3 is authorizing the sanitary engineer to enter into agreement with Jones and Henry Engineers for professional design services to install a permanent generator at the Spieth Tank Pump Station. Number 4 is the final resolution to proceed with the proposed road improvement project for ODOT along State Route 18 in Medina County. They're doing turning lanes and signal project over there. And the final one is the authorizing the sanitary engineer to enter into agreement with GPD's group for professional design services to design a residential campus at the 8730 Lake Road property.
Move to approve the 5 resolutions.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? So just a couple clarifications.
Sure.
On the GPD contract,
Sure.
the purpose of doing that is so that we can separate the commercial haulers from the residential
Correct.
traffic.
It'd be like a one-stop shop for all residential traffic, and then the commercials could still go to the 87 property, so we don't have the residential and commercial traffic commingling.
Mixed together.
Yep.
So it'd be a more efficient process.
Correct.
Haulers can get in and out much faster.
That is correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Roll call, please.
Handley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next up, we have Kathy Brighton Butcher from Economic Development, with a stack of paper here for us to approve.
Oh, the good news is you already read most of it.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you know, in 2018, we undertook the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the county. We had over 300 people involved in the process, and it took just under 9 months to create everything that we wanted. Each year, we come back in May and update the plan, so now we can say it's always because it's done 3 times. So this year, we need to add a new section to make it a little more comprehensive. So the Economic Development Projects section will be added to the document upon your approval. We have a number of projects we'd like to list out that are going to be in the document. The Spencer Industrial Park. This is a great project. Long time in coming. We've been working on Spencer Industrial Park forever, but Lorraine Medina Rural Electric Cooperative has really stepped up. They're going to put their headquarters there, so we're very excited about that. And then there are a number of grant opportunities to build that park out. The Brunswick Trails project will connect, I always forget which, Sleepy Hollow to Brunswick Lake. So that'll be a great trail system that'll allow people to use that for a variety of purposes. The Medina City Multipurpose Trail Project is another trail option that will allow people through the industrial parks to be able to use that land for multiple purposes as well as get to work. So we love that. Wadsworth is looking to do downtown redevelopment, so that'll be a really great streetscape project that will be interesting to see when it comes out because the drawings are gorgeous. And then Montville Township South Town Center. So the land has been cleared there, and we're excited to get that project going. So we want to make sure these are all in the document with your approval.
Where's the Southtown Center located?
It's that property that was cleared right next to the tire place.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, I know what you mean.
Between Trillium Creek.
Right, got it.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. I made the assumption, but, you know.
I move to approve the resolution.
Second?
Motion or second, any further discussion?
Yeah, since I wasn't around when when you went through this document, I do appreciate the depth, really, well put together and so forth. This is the first time I had seen it, and very, very impressive. The one question I had is involving economic development projects, like the Brunswick Trails project and the multipurpose trail projects. That kind of struck me. Is that typical for a comprehensive economic development plan to have? I'm supportive of both. I mean, I really think they're great ideas. But is that typical with other SEDS that are done elsewhere? Because I know that, we've
Absolutely.
looked at, that they would include trails and so forth.
Yeah, because at some level, quality of life obviously is a big
Got it.
piece of economic
Okay.
development, and then also workforce transportation. So in trying to encourage people to use multimodal, as we've all been talking about so much lately, that's a great opportunity. And I hope you appreciated the shortness of the document, because the ones that we looked at were over 300 pages. So.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
No, brevity was good, but it was a lot of detail. And the only other
There are
comment
certain things that are important to me, okay?
on page 44, you have Westfield Township instead of Westfield Township.
Oh,
this
thank
is for
you.
the truck stop, so we're just a little typo.
I will fix that.
all right,
Thank you.
But I did read through it thoroughly. It's very, very nicely done. So
Thanks. Great.
It is very nicely done and updated, so it's been a great project, I think, when you all worked on it a number of years ago, so thank you.
It was fun.
Thanks for keeping it updated.
Absolutely.
It's important.
and we-
Roll call, please.
Hambley?
yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes. I have a couple of commissioner resolutions. I'll do those next, and then we can go into the department updates. The first resolution is actually a commendation commending 10 agencies that assisted in a February 21st, 2021 ice rescue incident at River Styx Park. And essentially what happened was there was an individual that went through the ice, and there were several agencies that responded to it, both at the local police folks, Granger Township Fire Department, Lafayette Fire, Medina County All Hazards Team, the Water Rescue Team, Park Rangers, the Sheriff's Office, Montville Police, Seville Police, and the Cleveland Clinic Critical Care Team. They managed to save the individual, and there will be actually a recognition tomorrow evening for all of the agencies that participated in this. So could I have a motion to approve that?
A move to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes, thank you. The next resolution is appointing a member to the Medina County Advisory Council on Aging and Disability. And we are appointing Howard Elko for a term expiring March 31st, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes. And now we'll move into our Department updates. The first one is from Richard Nelson, our Chief Building Official.
Good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
You all have your copies, I believe.
I do not.
I do not.
You do not. Alicia emailed that last week.
That's all right. Just
Go ahead.
Proceed.
Yeah.
We'll send them over.
give us an update. We'll get the written part later.
Value of construction overall leveled off a little bit some, though it's still 8% over last April. New home values slipped a little bit, down to 430.
Very high.
Yes, yes. Year to date, we're at about 132 homes, starts pretty much on par. April, again, pretty much on average. There. And they continue to outpace last year, but not by much. April receipts are up a little bit over last April, and our year-to-date receipts are running ahead of last year. So yeah, we'll send that report over. Other information, whatever in our department, the old llama program now has been shut down for over 2 weeks with no incidents, a couple of small incidents, and nothing too difficult to work through. Our big thing is our residential building official resigned yesterday, and he'd only been with us not even a year, and so he's moving on. So we're going to have a little bit of a difficulty. We're going to have to replace him or at least get another inspector so we can move someone else. And Keith has made some nice improvements to our PCS system that are much appreciated by the clerks, streamlining things a little better, making it all good. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have.
Will we get behind in schedule?
I hope not. Although we're honestly, I'm already pretty not behind, but I've got a lot on my plate right now, and so it could get dicey. But I don't think it'll be too bad. As luck would have it, a fella had applied as a building inspector out of the blue, sent a resume a month ago or more. I kept it, called him yesterday. He's coming in this afternoon.
Good.
And if that works out, then we have 2 other individuals. Our inspectors are RBO certified, so they can move up. It was nice with the other fella that's leaving, though, because he also had a building official certification and could be my backup right in the office. So we'll lose that. We've had a reciprocal agreement with City of Brunswick for many years. I don't even know if that's still valid or not, but it was a long time thing that our department had, and I can look into that. But even that's less. There's less need for that now with the electronic laptops off-site. That's not as necessary anymore as it was in years past when we were doing the paper documents all the time.
Richard, what's our average turnaround time on commercial plans?
It was under 3 weeks. It's between 3 and 4 now.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's 10 or 12 projects on my plate right now, and all for 6 or 8 months there had only ever been 2 or 3 or 4.
What's turnaround time on residential?
Still 3 to 5 days.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's still pretty good,
Yeah.
but I have to buckle down and get some of those commercial ones out.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Thank you, Richard.
Very good.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming in. We'll get your report and we can follow up with you if we have any questions later. Next up, we have our Medina County Sheriff, Terry Grice.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning, Terry.
Good. I think I put just a little document in front of all of you. It's been a busy 4.5 months. It's been fun. I appreciate everyone's willingness to collaborate. Rebecca's here, our Director of Administrative Services and Programming. She's been extremely busy. But I think these 17 items, certainly not the only things, but I wanted to highlight them because I guess it's a good sign of what the staff's doing over there. Obviously, it's not just me. It's everyone over there working together to achieve some things that we're proud of. And actually, Scott's very helpful with it, along with the commissioners on some of these as well. So we did change the hiring practice. We started at the beginning of the year. We gave our first written test for deputies. We were very satisfied. We had 77 applicants for that. We're probably going to give another test, hopefully here sometime in June, because we've almost exhausted that list due to retirements that were previous and current. I think right now we have 5 openings, and obviously we know about some potential retirements coming later in the year. And then we also included our staff, our employees, in part of that interview process, which they're pretty eager about. Rebecca's been involved in that from the beginning. And I think that's good because we're creating that buy-in of who's working with them, who's becoming part of the family with us. The second one we've talked about was the state capital budget. Certainly Commissioner Hamley knows about that. Those drawings, Stephen Bastaine's been very helpful. We just had a meeting yesterday about that. He looked them over. Hopefully within the next week that will come before you for resolution, and we'll be able to go out to bid. And I was happy to hear Mr. Miller saying that some of these are coming in under budget for commercial, because that's important for us. As you know, it's $100,000 to do that upgrade. WatchGuard, again, thanks to the commissioners, that project is almost complete. They're actually installing them. They installed them last week, and WatchGuard themselves is on site yesterday and today to do the training. So hopefully that's up and running. So that's a very, very big program for the Sheriff's Office.
And just to clarify, that is for body cameras for all the deputies, correction officers, and also dash cams in other cars.
Correct. Yes. Yep. Which is huge, and I'll get to that, especially about the COs. That's a big improvement for that down at the bottom. The Westfield Foundation was very gracious. They made a donation of $35,000 so we could replace the 1985 van that the SWAT team uses, currently inoperable. So that order was placed 2 weeks ago. It's just for a Ford Transit van. Again, wonderful community partner there. Another donation which I want to highlight is Bill and Paula Cosgrove, a Sharon Township resident, donated over $44,000 for 3 drones. One of the drones you probably saw footage on with the K-9 incident. We used it at the SWAT incident. It's just extremely high-tech, has a lot of features, which obviously new technology. It provides a lot of features which are beneficial, and then the 2 other small drones came with it. So just an unbelievable partnership, and actually it came through a deputy, made the introduction, and it's just amazing. So it's great to have in the county.
Did you purchase crash protection?
That's a good point. We're going to have to look at that, right?
That
The
came in
insurance.
for another one of
right.
our agencies that
we won't say who it is. Right.
As if things are dropping.
yes.
The contract for airmark for the commissaries has been not approved yet. It's over at the prosecutor's office, but that's been updated, and they did also provide a grant, an equipment grant, which we'll talk about for the jail. The 4D program, I know I talked to a few of the commissioners about that. That's with JFS. The state pays 66%, and we're going to move that position to a full-time position. And then the county's responsible for the 34% of actual costs. The number of warrants has obviously skyrocketed over the last year, and I think we, as the Sheriff's Office, and I think as the county and JFS, want to make that a priority for the families involved in that. TCAP, thanks to the judges and Veronica, the Sheriff's Office, for the next 2 years will get $100,000 a year. We'll be able to use that. We haven't decided if we're going to do that one full-time position or potentially some part-time positions for some different programs that we've talked about. But that was very helpful. That's a 2-year program. I think the county's going to receive over the course of 2 years $840,000 through the courts that they're able to help us out with these. Mobile command vehicle, Congressman Gonzalez's office through, honestly, I don't really know what pot of money it's coming from, but it's some pot of money through the federal government, approved our request for a new mobile command vehicle, which is $800,000. So that's with no cash match, which is very helpful. The current command vehicle is a 1995, As anything, technology has changed, and we're going to make sure that we're including fire, EMA, police in the build of this, so that way it meets the expectations of everyone involved, because we don't want the vehicle just to sit. So we want to make sure that's out for all the community. Although not as enormous as some of these other donations, I do want to point out that the Eagles made the donation for $1,800. And again, it's a different group. And it just shows how Medina County is so lucky to have all these different groups that are willing to help out. But that was for an improvement in the dispatch center. Staying with dispatch, we had an organization donate all brand new carpet for the dispatch. So if you haven't been in there, the carpet's been, I think that's the first time in 15 or 20 years it's been updated. So they were very pleased. We came in on a Saturday and did that, and some of the employees came in and helped out. We are purchasing visitor management software for the lobby, and that will also incorporate with the new courthouse too. We made sure of that. And then, as you're aware, thankfully our clerk of courts, Dave Wadsworth, was helpful with the weapons upgrade. Again, that just streamlines the platform. There was 2 different platforms. We were buying 2 different types of ammunition. We were having 2 different holsters. The training was different, so that was why we went to one platform. And actually, our firearms instructors were the ones that were very instrumental in that. They went out with deputies, and they selected which one that they wanted to move to, so that was very helpful. Again, I've already talked about the partnership with adult probation. We're going to share information. That way, they have real-time information coming from the jail on their probationers too, so it saves some of their time from coming out. They can see it real-time, and they also are helping with number 15 here. The jail cameras are not digital, and we found out that there are some blind spots throughout the jail. So we have between adult probation and 2 other grants, we have roughly $150,000 we'd like to move forward with that project. And then we're also going to increase the storage capacity, so that way if any incidents happen, we have that. Then the taser grant, we received that. There will be 8 new tasers to bring that platform up to consistency. And then the COVID through the Office of Criminal Justice Services, that was the latest one to update some of the plumbing fixtures in the video conference room. There's still some money out there through Office of Criminal Justice Services we'll apply for. That brings up a lot of the projects. So I will say the staff has been very busy. It's, like I said at the beginning, I'm learning something every day, which is fun, and they've been very helpful. The jail update, when we took office at the beginning of January, roughly it was 94 was the daily count. Obviously in April it was 205. So it's getting back, unfortunately, in a way, getting back to where it was
Pre-COVID?
Yeah, pre-COVID 2019.
And our capacity is like
256.
Right.
Obviously, that's an area that I'm certainly spending a lot of time in trying to learn. And they do a fantastic job. And I will share this. I don't have the numbers, but the amount of assaults on our COs has gone through the roof, is what I've been told. Again, I'm going by January, that they've never seen that before. And we take that very seriously, and we certainly, when that happens, we file the appropriate criminal charges as well. People have asked what that's indicative of or attributed to. I don't know if it's more mental health issues within the jail or some of the drug problems that we're seeing in there as well. It's not so much heroin right now as meth, and I know you are all aware of that, but they do a fantastic job. We just came out, it's been over the last month, we had communication technician appreciation, corrections officer appreciation, and obviously last week was law enforcement Memorial Week. So all 3 of those divisions do a fantastic job, and I got to tell you, these COs, it's a tough job back there, and they really should be appreciated along with the deputies and our dispatchers. So having said that, happy to answer questions, but I appreciate the help and the guidance. You know, when I've called and asked questions, Scott's been great. Actually, everyone in the room I've had conversations with, so I appreciate it. So,
The visitor management software that you're referring, is that access control?
it's not access control. It's when someone comes in, they'll, let's say they're there for a meeting, they'll swipe their ID, it then will print out where they're supposed to be and have an ID badge. So we won't just have people walking around the building without knowing who they are. And then for repeat visitors, it'll automatically have them in the system, and it'll just obviously let them through. What you're referring to, we are adding some of those to the facility, because right now there's still quite a few of keys. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get away from that. And I know we're working with Scott for the courthouse too to probably incorporate that just so it's one system. So we're not having multiple systems throughout the county.
It'll be a system consistent with what we have in the administration building here, right?
I don't know, for the courthouse?
We hope to make it standard.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, the courthouse, Scott's been very helpful, but we've been working with the judges there, because I know it's supposed to start here maybe in mid-June, and that's going to cause some changes. Obviously, the entrance during construction will be changed. So not only for the staff, but obviously for citizens going inside. So any questions? Nope.
Good.
All right.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Come back again and keep us updated,
All right,
please.
we will do that.
We will move into our discussion session this morning. I had Rhonda give each of you a copy of the latest memo from the state on health orders, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit as far as the conduct of our meetings and opening them up to the public. So basically, effective June 2nd, all of the health orders, I believe, and will be lifted, with the exception that people who are not vaccinated are still required to wear face masks. I would tell you from my perspective, I'm not sure that we should be in the business of policing those who have masks and those who do not have masks. I think it's up to the individual to decide that. I would encourage everybody to be vaccinated, but that's, again, a personal choice. So I would suggest that as of the meeting following June 2nd, which I think June 1st is the Tuesday.
It is a Wednesday.
Is a Wednesday, so beginning June 8th, that we open our buildings up and open the commissioner's room up.
Well, I just read, and we were all three on the phone with Krista, and as I understand, what the magic of June 2nd is, and I think the idea was that they're trying to do everything they can to bump up the vaccination rate. Now, Medina County is ahead of most of the other part of the state. So I wonder, just going ahead and just opening up on June 1st. Frankly, I mean, I know his order quote is June 2nd, but many of us have gone to meetings where essentially, some events, but they're all open anyway.
I'm good with that. You okay with that, Colleen?
Absolutely.
One day.
Yep.
At this point, it makes no sense to wait much longer.
Right.
Now, we'll resume, obviously, with the ability for the public to come in.
Yeah, I think it ought to be open as it
Sure.
was before.
Okay. Is there any way we could maybe just, I think part of the recommendations are that if you're not vaccinated, we would at least request people to wear a mask. And as you say, we're not in the business of policing people, but we can at least suggest, if that is what the recommendations are, at least educate them, like, okay, the recommendations are if you're not vaccinated, please, you say please, and if they don't, well, okay, they don't.
I'm okay with posting a sign, and I
Yeah,
think it
just
suggests
asking.
that maybe we post a sign that says, if you're
Well,
vaccinated, no mask is
We have
required.
signs now saying our building is closed down there. They can just be replaced with the
With something that
Suggestion
says,
sign,
Yeah, if
yeah.
you're not vaccinated, please wear a mask.
Yeah.
So, I'm good with that. You okay with that, Scott? Having Stephen make signs up?
At least make those signs up.
Okay.
and inform all the other buildings that we're opening.
We need one small sign per door or per entrance.
And did they want that for all the buildings?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would make sense, so we have consistency. Anything else? We good with that?
Oh, yeah.
We've already talked about, Scott, do you have anything else you wanna come up and present, or you wanna talk about the guaranteed maximum price anymore? We good with that? Okay. Nope. I'm happy to see it moving along.
Me too.
I'm glad to see that shovels will be coming soon, and it'll be a good thing. Jeremy, do you have anything?
Just one thing real quick.
Hey, last week I talked about the scale over at the solid waste district that was having some issues that with the concrete breaking up. So we have that repair scheduled for $15,000, which is $10,000 less than the last repair, which is good news. So starting Sunday, May 23rd, they will start removing the old concrete. Since concrete's not available on Sundays, they'll pour Monday morning. They'll use 3-day concrete and then have the scales hopefully open by 12 p.m. on Thursday. And we've notified all of the haulers of this. So we also hired a traffic control company to come and help manage the because the outbound scale will be used as both the inbound and outbound. So we'll have them out there to help assist with traffic control. So,
Excellent.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks.
Anything else? Discussion? All
I will
right.
cede my time to the NOACA discussion.
All right. Steve, you're up. NOACA.
I don't know why I am. Obviously, there's, now Bethany has provided us, after a request, with a list of, after reviewing the long-range transportation plan, some suggestions. I would propose that we endorse her suggestions, pass those along with our endorsement. I would also suggest maybe adding some additional that I mean, I've got two at least in mind. I mean, Bethany was very good in going through this, identifying, I said, some key areas. But there are some others that I think that, and Bill and I, we were both on the Zoom call on Friday with NOACA. And I know you asked about the procedure, basically procedural questions as to how much changes are we available to that. And my interpretation of the director's response was they're not anticipating a lot of change. I mean, that seemed to be what she was saying. There's not going to be.
Well, in the conversation,
Yeah.
she mentioned, and Grace Galucci mentioned that several of our comments that we previously supplied had been incorporated into the plan, and she was going to provide us with a point by point to show that what the concern was and where in the plan it was actually addressed. I've called Director Galucci this morning and left her a message and asked her if she could get that onto us, and I will share it with all of you as soon as I get it. But so we'll have to wait and see what the plan says and how they amended it and addressed our concerns and the degree to which they addressed the concerns, and then I think go from there. So, but she did say that public comment will be accepted up until May 31st.
Right.
And then the NOACA board meeting is scheduled for June 11th, and they intend to present the plan to the board for approval at the June 11th. So there's a 10-day period or so that they will have to make further amendments to the plan before it's presented.
And I guess that is the question. I mean, they were presenting a bullet points, and I think you indicated, I think both of us cited, they did eliminate some bullet points, at least in the presentation.
They made some changes,
but the question is whether they actually changed the plan or just how they presented it. But there is one that actually involved in Chapter 5, and it involves, the trouble is they don't paginate, they still haven't, but there's involved the other economic development strategy, and Bethany kind of identified the general area, but it has to do with incentives in greenfields. They actually have the statement in this on there that incentives should benefit infill. Basically, when it comes down to greenfields, do not need incentives. And just that statement alone, I think, just undermines the ability for anyone that has greenfields, which is most of our, quote, incentive programs have greenfields. Most of our communities have greenfields. Most of the area of development. So to actually have within our plan that that greenfield, previously undeveloped sites, do not need incentives, doesn't realize that outside our region, those greenfields have incentives. And if we were to adopt that policy, we basically would be disarming ourselves in a contest for appropriately attracting businesses to Medina County. Yeah.
In fact, they actually go beyond that statement.
Right.
Bethany, would you come up to the
Yeah, sure,
microphone?
please. Go ahead.
Thank you.
You can just stay there.
In that Chapter 5, which was the economic development chapter, they actually go beyond saying that you shouldn't use incentives for greenfields. They're actually discouraging greenfield development at all.
Right. Yeah.
They're basically saying, we encourage the development of brownfields and gray fields, but not greenfields. And so that puts Medina County at a very serious disadvantage. We have a few exceptions where, we have some, brownfields, the Kmart building has been vacant for a while, but most of the land that's available for development is currently undeveloped, which is the definition of greenfields. Now, a lot of that land, may be in an area which is already zoned. It may have utilities close, but we do have examples of land that is in an industrial zoned area, but it's farmland and it's undeveloped. It's a greenfield, and it needs a little bit of an extension, for water and sewer utilities, maybe a little bit of highway upgrade, but it would make those areas very attractive for job creation and development. So Medina County and the surrounding counties to Cuyahoga are just very different from Cuyahoga County. And they seem to have written the plan specifically just with Cuyahoga County in mind. No other consideration for some of the development opportunities in the other counties.
Would you agree, too, that if we were to actually adopt that as a policy, the remainder of the state has a lot of greenfields with incentives? So essentially, we'd be at a disadvantage, a competitive disadvantage.
Absolutely.
For economic development, which is that's insane. And I don't think as a long-range plan we ought to have that. So I really do believe we need to make a statement in there that has to be redacted from this plan.
Absolutely.
It must, in terms of economic development. No ifs, ands, or buts. And they have the discussion as to the benefits of a gray fill and the brown field, a green field, and the infill. Okay, that's fine. And we, as you point out, even our comprehensive economic development plan, we've got some brownfield issues, and okay, we're all in on that. But it's just that their extension of this into any other development, other than that, doesn't deserve incentives, is a discussion more with the state legislature than it ought to be as part of a long-range transportation plan.
And given, how they've approached economic development, and I know that's my primary focus, and others may have other areas of focus, but, one of their policy recommendations or their outcomes is that they want to be the agency that is going to put a primer together on best practices in economic development. It's nothing that I can endorse. I mean, I guess I'll have to be part of the conversation, but I absolutely could not endorse them even doing a best primer. They have no economic development experts on their staff, and they might get a little bit of input from the rest of us, but the idea that they would develop a primer of best practices is kind of silly, given the actual policy bent that they have in their documents.
So I would recommend that when we do a cover letter endorsing hers, the Economic Development Corporation's comments, we also include a discussion, our board unanimously believing that we should be redacting those portions and those references to that. And the other that I would point out, the issue I wanted to raise up, I still have the issue with the extension of the rail line into Medina County. I was on the call whenever RTA told Grace to remove any of the extension down there. It's down 42, not I-71. And frankly, I would rather have a reference to, if they're going to do a visionary plan, it ought to, if a dedicated bus line up and down 40. If we're going to do anything with 42, we ought to be providing public transit with a 20-minute headway if the population supports it. But if we're going to expend money for public transit, it won't be a rail line down 42. It would have to be a bus. That would allow it to deviate, be able to meet the needs, be able to deviate enough to go to the environmental justice areas, also be able to deviate and connect up to our industrial parks and so forth. So I think that which you couldn't do with a rail line anyway. So that's why to me it's that she hasn't listened to RTA, which has the rail lines and will be extending them, and they're going to expend $5 million after this plan is adopted, Grace mentioned, to study rail line extensions. And for the life of me, Geauga County was allowed to opt out of it, I think, as I understand it. I think we ought to be also to opt out and say, no, any kind of visionary plan does not involve a rail line extension, but should, if we're going to link up with public transit, let's make it a bus which has much more flexibility, lower capital cost, and the ability to meet the needs based on, obviously, the demands of the public.
Well, the rail line extension was what they refer to as an illustrative project. It's nothing that is even really on the drawing board to happen. The one other point I would make is, we talked about the Spencer Industrial Park. That is a greenfield development that would not be perhaps endorsed by this plan, and I think that is a concern. But the other thing, and Grace has driven this home most recently in the conversations that I've been in, that NOACA is an urban planning organization. it does not plan for rural areas. And so to the degree that this plan is limited to the urbanized areas, and they are very defined on the map about what the urbanized areas are, particularly Brunswick and areas around Brunswick, and the city of Medina and areas around the city of Medina. It does not extend over to Spencer and areas outside of the actual urbanized areas. But there's also references and indications that those areas are brought along with the urbanized areas. So I do think we need to have some sensitivity to the mission of NOACA relative to our county, but also vice versa, our county relative to what NOACA is trying to do.
So along those lines, their language needs to be much more clear about, the areas that their policies are going to apply to. And the reason I say that is because they're also working sort of simultaneously on developing a comprehensive economic development strategy. If that comprehensive economic development strategy for this 5-county region follows the recommendations in this long-range transportation plan, their SEDS document for the region is not going to specify, this just applies to the urbanized areas of these 5 counties. It's going to apply to the balance of the 5 counties, all 5 counties. And those SEDS plans are used to obtain federal, state grant funding. And so if you've got policies in the SEDS that mirror this document, it's going to prevent us from being able to, have our projects prioritized as greenfield developments in the SEDS to be able to get funding for things like Spencer Industrial Park.
If nothing else, it has the potential to create confusion, which we
absolutely,
especially when you're in the throes of an economic development project and you're trying to get it done. Having all these other ancillary issues to deal with is not a good thing.
Absolutely. So, any other questions for me? All right.
I don't.
No. If it's all right with you, I'll take responsibility to develop a draft letter for us to consider attached to, of course, their recommendations from Medina County Economic Development Corporation, and anything else we get from the other, I guess, I don't know whether planning or even Shannon with our transit has any other comments.
Andy, do you have any other comments you wanted to make?
That is a girthy document, to sit down and try to read that in its entirety. So I didn't read it from cover to cover.
You didn't read all 597
I did
pages
not.
and 2,000 pages of
Yeah, about the appendix.
I read the whole
Yes.
thing.
plus the appendices.
So, but my takeaway from a lot of the generalities is it is very urban core centric. It is not lending itself to the needs of a lot of Medina County, specifically my office. Things that we do, we're an afterthought in the document. The way we approach things, our needs, I don't have a lot of hope, just based on the composition of the board, that we're going to have enough, willpower to be able to get the changes that I think, frankly, need to be made. So it is disheartening to me what's in that document. The overriding theme that we're seeing is equity. Well, equity and equality are different. Equity is bringing everybody to the same level. Equality is giving everybody the same thing. So if the document is saying we're working on equity, why aren't all the counties represented equally? And that's one that I just struggle with, because we're not on a level playing field with them. We're really not.
And Andy, I would agree in terms of board representation. It's based more on population.
Oh, it is.
So it's not
It's not equity.
That's
It's
5
equality.
counties, each get 20%.
Yeah.
It's based on population, and one of the concerns that we all have expressed is that the census should have been released earlier this year. It's going to be delayed till September, but that document should inform much of what goes into this relative to the population.
And to show our considerable growth in the last 10 years.
Yes, if you look at the trend lines, Cuyahoga County has been losing population
Yes.
for many decades. Many decades, and Medina County has been gaining in population for many decades. So I have, like Colleen just said, I think we're going to be surprised when we see the numbers and what Medina County, how much it has grown. That, I think, should inform this document.
Well,
I asked the question of Grace at our meeting, how often is this re-examined? And there is some regularity in looking at it and making amendments to it. So it's not like this is locked into stone for the next 10 years.
Correct.
But the other thing I would mention, because again, in the meeting that we had on Friday, it was enlightening in many respects. The areas of the county that you are primarily concerned with are the rural areas of the county. And Grace made it very clear that there is a separation in funding mechanisms. The rural areas of the county are funded through ODOT. The urbanized areas of the county are funded through the FTA and more federal funds. And so you're even geographically, when you look at the geographical relative areas of Cuyahoga County, which is almost entirely urbanized and developed,
right,
relative to Medina County that is not. Obviously most of the funds are going to go to.
Oh, and I understand that. It's just a lot of the policies are I would say skewed towards the more urban core.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part, is I understand that we're a small component of the urbanized area, but why can't we be on a level playing field?
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking for. Let's be level.
I guess, Andy, when I looked at this plan, when I see provisions in the plan that seem to be designed to maintain and trap, I'll use that word, population in urbanized cores, as opposed to allowing them to go where they may want to go and live, that's what concerns me.
Yeah, just like the new the interchange policy. Frankly, they're afraid of urban sprawl. I mean, how many miles from downtown is the proposed interchange at 162 and 57? There's how many interchanges in between? I don't know that that's going to be a big contributor to urban sprawl, but they're definitely afraid that that's going to happen if we get an interchange there. Frankly, I think it's alarming that we got 9 miles between interchanges. Yep. When the policy says in suburban areas you're looking at 2 miles, and it's a problem to get one halfway in between.
As I understand in the system they use to evaluate, that in terms of transportation, the interchange south of 18 was qualified in terms of the cost benefit. It's just the other more recent, this is what Grace had told me, that the more recent changes to that take into consideration growth of the entire region, environmental justice, and equity, that's where
it pushed it to the negative.
Pushed it to the negative.
Yeah.
And so it's really a matter of how they evaluated it. But if it was just purely on transportation, as you point out, the policy, and in terms of traffic and so forth,
it's warranted.
It's warranted, which is the amazing thing, is that they've created a system where they basically undervalues the benefit for transportation that the interchange would provide.
Yeah.
So I'll have to ask Grace that question, because I re-asked the question, because
Yes.
my understanding when I asked her, or we
Yeah.
talked about that,
Yeah.
is that she indicated to me that it was not justified, economically justified, in terms of costs and benefits.
But only when they added the total region and so forth. So I asked specifically that because I was, her and I, a discussion when we had about 2 hours on Zoom involving the Nagel Road, or Lear Nagel Road, that interchange, and how that report, when it was, how that compares with the new analysis. And it really came down to is that obviously the additional criteria that were created. So, but who makes the decision? Let me ask, since about the voting, who actually makes the decision what changes are incorporated in the plan?
I would assume the board.
I don't know that I think the board is going to approve the plan as it's presented.
Correct.
I don't know that the board is going to
Have input into the
necessarily
revisions.
force any specific revision.
So exactly,
I think-
it's the staff and the executive director that are actually going to determine what changes that have been incorporated from public input, is what you're saying.
I think that's fair, yeah.
That would be
I
my
asked that
guess.
question, and and Grace told me they were going to get all the public input by the 31st, and then they would make, apparently appropriate, whatever, that means, changes to the plan, and then present it to the board on the 11th of June.
Would it be out of order for us to ask actually what that public input has been? Since they've been doing it online and all that.
I asked that question
I mean, that'd
a
be
couple
public
weeks ago.
record.
And the response was, well, that's been an ongoing procedure for a year and a
But more
half
recently, they've opened up, well, we can just ask what the public comment portion of it.
since
It's been
the
online.
release.
Since the release. I think we ought to ask them for the
Since
public
like May
record.
1, I think it came out the
Yeah,
1st of May.
I'd like to know what the public is, or the general public are saying about this, and what the
Okay.
questions are. And obviously, we can see if the board responsibility, see, are we really responding, or is the board really responding?
And see what other government
See
entities
if
are
anybody else has
responding,
made
yes.
some comments. And I think the public records request is in order. It is a public agency, and we ought to know. I can tell you, when I-71 with the widening and so forth, I still have the volumes that were provided to the board before, when we were talking about the widening at home. I just tend to collect it because a lot of them came from Medina County, but what the public input was for and against on that kind of on what was going on. So a long-range plan ought to have something, documents as to what the people have actually said about it.
And just to piggyback off of
Yeah.
the one thing Bethany put together is, I'm still alarmed with the assumptions to how the population growth is going to be. We've got trends of Cuyahoga County and specifically Cleveland losing population for 50 years. And all of a sudden now we're going to say it's going to trend and gain a couple 100,000 people in the region. Based on what? And we're looking at our plan based on this assumption being true. And just like the train issue coming to 42, that's not a realistic issue coming to Medina down 42. I don't know that it's realistic to assume that all of a sudden, after decades and decades of decline in population, and the state of Ohio is projecting, losses still, that now this document is projecting gains of a couple 100,000 people. Based on what? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's what we're basing our long-range plan on, is the population growth to the area. We should be looking at what has been happening for maybe the last 30 years, and where has the growth been.
That was one of the issues, Andy, we brought up, I don't know, a month or so.
Right, yeah.
A month and a half ago. And in the presentation, the first presentation that I saw, it actually had a graph of population changes, and it showed Cleveland trending upward, if I recall correctly. And I think in the next version of that presentation, I think those graphs were actually taken out.
But I think the
Assumptions are still there.
the fourth scenario in the transportation planning is still based on the significant growth. Because they had the maintained car total.
Right.
In the fourth scenario, it was still based on the 200,000 or 267,000 person growth.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you're basing it on really bad assumption, I mean, the saying is garbage in, garbage out. That's it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when the state of Ohio, who's been looking at data trends for population, they're projecting still a loss. So I'm not sure where they're making that assumption or how they made that.
But this, as I understand, this is supposed to be a plan that helps NOACA determine how it's going to direct future funding. Correct, not only for improvements, but likewise for the various studies that are needed when it comes to transportation, or in this case, land use and housing and so forth. And so I guess that's what my concern is that how much is incorporated in this that literally are areas that we really don't want NOACA to be determining.
And considering that funding is involved, I do not understand why they're getting involved in economic development best practices. All 5 counties are so different goals, different needs, different direction for economic development. So why this is even part of the discussion, I don't understand, especially when funding is involved.
They're looking at housing. There's just, seems to me there's a lot of things beyond transportation that NOACA could be a support agency, supplying data and assist, but shouldn't be the lead agency on. It seems like we've gotten away from the transportation planning to whole life planning. And that's not really what the goal of NOACA is, or my understanding of what our goal is. And that's the frustrating part, is we seem to be chasing so many different things that aren't really what we're responsible for. So,
Mayor, do you have anything you wanted to add?
I agree with the discussion 100%.
I'd like to add something.
Oh, Shannon?
I haven't said a lot about this, but there's a couple of points I wanted to make along with everybody else. There's an exorbitant amount of funding coming out of the FTA through ODOT for transit right now, more, and it seems to be accelerating, especially with infrastructure, electric vehicles and things, which I'm becoming a student of. But most of the grants we write, almost all, are for serving underserved areas. I think it's interesting that they want to focus on the served areas already, not the underserved, when grants are, you're writing a grant for the underserved areas that we need in the county. So it's counterintuitive to me to write a grant for an overly served area when they really want the underserved area to be focused on.
Shannon, it may be a matter of where the funding is coming from. So if it's coming through ODOT, ODOT is more involved with the underserved, less populated, non-urban areas. NOACA specifically is focused on the urban areas and the urban cores as they have defined it. Now, I don't know that they define it as much as it's defined by the federal government and the census.
It's based on census.
But it's not, Grace has made it very clear that NOACA is an urban planning organization. So if there are FTA funds or particularly ODOT funds that are coming for non-urban areas, then that's what they should be used for. And there may be other funding that is coming for the urban areas, I guess is my
I would agree with everything except the fact I think it's to promote urban growth in an underserved area. So if you talk to FTA and you talk to ODOT, you hear a different message. And I understand what you're saying exactly. But I think NOACA's goal, in my opinion and my experience, is to promote urban growth of underserved areas and promote, maybe I'm being a little philosophical, but as you have conversations in Transit Council and with ODOT and FTA like I do, they're trying to promote that growth in underserved areas that we have here that we're talking about. And it just seems to emphasize the message you all are sharing today. I think they're sending two different messages when we're applying for funding and planning, as you see it.
I think in the plan that talks about the environmental justice areas, as well as these job hubs and the minor job hubs, and we have those in our county, and likewise, like even like Lodi and so forth, and that's outside the urbanized area, but that it does meet what actually the plan I'd be targeting, and I think Chan's exactly right that they actually miss that because they're not part of this. With the Medina, Brunswick urbanized area, it really is underserved, and I think even the Medina demonstrated that it was underserved in terms of transit, and they basically were at a deficit. We're not given that same standing that we ought to be under those criteria that they've said that they're going to apply to this, which is basically it's federal criteria and federal definitions. So I think there is a good point to be made that we really haven't been given our due when it comes to the transit, and that's hence I guess my emphasis of if we're going to spend money on a corridor and start studying, we ought to be at a bus going up and down and connecting up these areas not spending $5 million on a rail study.
Well, you're speaking of a BRT, a bus rapid transit, which is a
Yes.
very popular thing across the state. Which a dedicated line that's much more cost-effective, more flexible. Obviously, it would be more palatable with land usage and things, so it may be something that we transition into, but again, down the line. But I just find it interesting, again, just to reemphasize the message that when you're writing a grant and what it's used for and there's money coming. It's coming. And we want to use it in the most stewardous way, and it just seems interesting that we want to focus more. And you have to balance in public transit. Do you provide better service to your busy areas, or do you reach out to the underserved area and try to grab more? And we're trying to do a balanced approach to that in transit, which is what we're going to plan to do over the next 4 to 5 years in this county. So we can't forget about the Lodi's and the Seville area, stuff like that, that's underserved. So.
Right.
Yeah, one of the points that I thought too, and when you looked at some of the footnotes they were providing, there was a Federal Reserve study that identified, especially when you talk about, talk about that job disconnect and location disconnect and how to provide transit.
Right.
One of the areas the Federal Reserve study talked about is that actually has had more success than providing public transit is providing individuals cars and automobiles, and the benefit of that, and yet there's no discussion in our transportation plan about if you really want to help people in terms of employment and getting them to there, actually one of the more cost-effective ways is helping them get a car.
Ride sharing.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that seems, and yet there's no discussion, and that is a mode of transportation.
Actually, Steve, there was a couple of graphs on individually owned cars.
Right.
And the statistics, if I recall correctly, is that, and I'm going to be close here, but not exact. So like 7% of the population of the state generally did not have access to a car.
Right.
In Cuyahoga County, it was closer to 10, 11%, and in Cleveland proper, it was closer to 20%.
Right.
But my concern would be is if you provide cars to folks instead of public transportation, now you've increased congestion, you've decreased air quality, and there's a negative, and if the folks don't have the ability to store those cars, park the cars, I mean, if they don't have parking at their home,
right, yep.
or their place of residence, what are they going to do with them?
Well, the Federal Reserve study did talk about the parking, and I think the plan did as well. But they also indicated that Cleveland actually has comparatively with a large city, a very low congestion index. And we started looking at it. So it's actually more geographic or place specific as to whether that would be a good scenario. I would contend that if you're going to, that there would be some areas of our region. Like I said, Cleveland is not the same as Medina, not the same as Lake and Jog and so forth, that actually it would be more productive to sponsor programs that would address that specific issue for those rather than building a whole transit system to go out in the middle of Spencer. No offense to Spencer, or out to Chatham, but if you can help somebody, they can at least be able to go back and forth to work. But like I said, there ought to be those kind of discussions where you encourage those kind of programs, and those could be private-public partnerships. Nonprofits get involved with that.
Microtransit solutions
exactly,
that,
as well as
that pull that in,
combination.
right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's park and
First
ride,
and last
there's all these
mile,
other things
right.
that
First
really
and
ought
last
to be
mile.
part of the discussion for long-range planning. And like I said, then spending $5 million for a rail study.
Some of the technology we have coming in for our tablets and we'll have a microtransportation with the Easy Fare app. With Uber and Lyft, you'll be able to book an Uber and Lyft trip to our public transit connection. So we're already working through that. So if you're out a ways from, you can pull in. There's not a lot of Uber and Lyft in the county right now.
And that's in the rural
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
you tend not to have that, so.
But they're hungry to come out this way if we show the need. And we will with the what we're doing.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we have until May 31st to submit our comments. You're gonna
I'll write a
draft
draft
the letter
and
and then
circulate it.
circulate it?
Okay, sure.
Scott?
One thing we need to talk about is, a couple weeks ago, the city passed their initiative, and they're able to participate in the 1969 courthouse. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to talk to the city now about what that looks like. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to start a conversation, probably with Mayor Hanwell, who's here today, to talk about some of the cost sharing of some of the things that we're currently doing that they will benefit from. The Sally Port, the holding areas, the entrance and screening areas, the connection, some of the excavating, the electrical, landscaping, the courtyard. Those things. Also talk about what the cost sharing is going to look like for operations. You could have shared security, shared cleaning, maintenance, and then to also talk about see, there was one other thing. So, what? Oh, the building. Yes. What does the lease look like? Is there? They've got their municipal court will be empty. Do we switch buildings? Each offer each other $1 lease. Is there some kind of money or lease payment that's involved? So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go ahead and start those conversations with the city and maybe get some ideas down, get what their expectations are, let them know what our expectations are, and then come to you with that and discuss.
Yes, Mayor, are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I would like to see is at our next meeting that we pass a resolution authorizing you to begin conversations with the city of Medina in terms of I'll just call it a usage agreement at this point, in whatever form that takes, that can then be presented back to the commissioners.
Okay.
I would agree.
I would
Yep.
agree.
Yep.
All right. We'll have a resolution for next week then.
Excellent.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Super.
Mayor Hanwell, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I just wanted to share a couple things. Scott Miller, myself, Sheriff Grace, and my police chief, Ed Kinney, got together and talked about security during this construction phase, in particular when the back area is all fenced off. And there's a great deal of collaboration. I appreciate the sheriff's interest in. And we won't get into the specifics of it because that's not good from a security standpoint, but that both dispatch centers and both departments will be able to visualize the cameras that are going to be temporarily installed and preferably, excuse me, when the new court is constructed. And then there was a request of the city to establish 5 handicap parking spaces up front. And our city crew worked on that late last week.
So, Mayor, those will be on Broadway?
On Broadway, yes, sir. As close to the court as possible, because that's going to become the entrance with the ramp once it's installed. So we added 3 brand new ones to the south of the crosswalk, immediately south, 2 to the north, and then we ended up with a bonus one because there was already one at the far end closest to Liberty in front of the 1841. So we'll have 6 handicap spaces. There is 1 regular space down by the prosecutor's office, and there is 1, if not 2, in between the new and the old existing handicap spaces. So if the county or the judges or the sheriff determine that we need more than 6 and we have to add another 1, 2, 3, the city stands willing and able to work with the county in that regard. The second thing is I asked Branstetter and Carroll ahead of time, and Scott and I will talk about this and see if it's okay with the commissioners. Our finance department for the modifications and use of the 69 building would prefer, if possible, that the city contract directly with Branstetter and Carroll instead of an agreement with the county, and then the county pays it and then the city reimburses it. Sometimes from an audit standpoint that gets a little messier. So Scott and I will work our way through that, and then I'll let him work with you. But I do have a estimate, and out of fairness to my counsel, I won't announce the amount. But what my hope is Originally, we were going to wait until the vote was certified on May 25th, which would then push me to June 8th for the first discussion with council, and then the 22nd for the full council. Well, the Finance Committee is the full council, but it's two processes. So if my law director agrees to it, what my plan is, now that I have the document already, and we are still accepting things for the agenda for May 24th, is if the law director agrees, take it to the Finance Committee on May 24th, subject to the Board of Elections certifying the election. And what that does, in essence, is save us from wasting that 2 weeks. And we also need an appropriation from the council, the judge to agree to it, which he's told us ahead of time he will. And then that will let Branstetter and Carroll begin the process of developing a variety of plans and meeting with the court staff to find out with that space reconfiguration what is their preference. And then, of course, the council would have to approve it, and ultimately the commissioners. So that's just kind of where we are today.
So, Mayor, if I understand correctly, the city is going to strike an agreement with Branstetter and Carroll for Branstetter and Carroll to work directly for and with the city to design the space in the 69 edition. Is that correct?
That would be our preference if that's possible and agreeable to the commissioners.
Yeah, I don't think we'd have any. I think that makes more sense than having it come through us anyhow.
It's your money.
Yes,
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that, whatever that final design is, we would want to have a final look at it.
Input.
Yeah, just
Yes,
to
sir.
say, yeah, we agree with it, or
Right.
no, we don't.
And with all due respect, it's your building, so that's, I'm very respectful of that, and, we're not going to do anything and not share it. It's going to be a very collaborative process. But in the same respect, sometimes having two different finance departments and two different...
I fully agree. Let's make it as
It complicates
simple
matters.
as practical. Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
And I'm available if there's any other questions or recommendations, but I can't stress enough how appreciative the council is, the judge and his staff are, of the collaboration with the county, as well as the ongoing relationship with the sheriff's office, my police department, and Scott. We're really working together, both on your project and hopefully on the city project.
Well, it wasn't the way we originally intended, but looks like we're going to have the courthouse all on the square. That'll be nice.
That's my hope and prayer, yes.
Well, I have one question. I'll put you
Yes,
on the
sir.
spot. In the parking garage, the entrances to the parking garage, there is a concrete divider that separates the incoming and outgoing traffic.
Yes, sir.
Would the city be okay if those were removed?
Right. We talked about this, maybe a month ago, Scott? And I know Nino was getting quotes from a couple different folks.
Good.
And then the issue became, are we going to consider this maintenance, which is then a 50-50 split, between us and the county, or how are we going to pay for it? But I know we talked about that early on, and thanks for reminding me. I kind of lost track of that one.
Especially for someone who drives an F-150.
Right.
It's a challenge to get in and out of there without hitting those.
Well, when we were meeting over
I'm
there.
not hit one, for the record.
Okay.
But it's close.
Yes. When we were meeting over there, it was obvious from looking at the structures that they've been hit more than once.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that's a hindrance, then the whole idea of them was in case it was ever converted in the future to where you had to pay to get in and out. And the city, as long as I've been in office, and I don't see the council changing that, has always taken pride in offering free parking to support the businesses in the downtown, and I don't see that changing in the future, nor would I see it changing for the public purpose of the courts to have people pay to come in for their court case. So that was the whole idea of the island, and the fact that that's not necessary now. I think there's actually utilities, electric, and that under those islands, so we could just cap it at the ground level, and it's still there in case when we're all long gone, 100 years from now, somebody else decides they want to do that, it's still there.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good.
Okay, thank you all.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. You're welcome to come anytime.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion items?
I think Amy, is Amy out there? No. I think
All right.
Amy was, I think she was going to update you on the county fair. She's taking care of staffing the booth for the week.
Okay.
Oh,
And if it's all right with you, employees that work after hours, time and a half comp time, who are working
Okay.
at beyond their normal hours to staff the booth. So,
Perfect.
if you're okay with that,
Yep. All right.
and Amy taking charge of
Sure.
running
Would
the
be
week.
fine, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
Thank you.
We still have the special meeting, it's on the 26th, correct?
Correct. 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock Wednesday. Now, that's going to be also broadcast, Facebook like a normal standard meeting,
Right.
correct?
I think it's the 25th.
No,
It's
it's
Tuesday, I thought.
It's Tuesday, the
20
Tuesday, so
25th.
25th.
Yes.
Sorry,
I thought it was 26.
I had both on my calendar, so.
But I think it
Tuesday
was
was the
decided that it was the 25th.
Okay, so Tuesday, all right.
Now Bill looks nervous about his
Okay.
calendar.
Okay.
I'll have to
Maybe-
double check that. For that meeting, I know that we're going to have some projects that we're going to talk about.
Right.
Depending on what all those look like, I would like to talk about a process that we might implement to involve the public in some of this. So if we have
Mhm.
dollars that are available for other projects other than ones that we may have earmarks for, I would like to see us get together a cross-sectional group of folks to actually look at different projects, evaluate them, and make a presentation back to us.
But maybe to save time constraints, they would have to understand whether they conform to the rules before.
Well, we have to be very clear on what the rules
Right.
are, and I have read the rules over a
Mhm.
dozen times, and I'm still not 100% clear on what they are.
What, well, I guess number one, this is the first meeting of many to talk about this.
Yes.
Correct.
And so forth. It is the start. There's no compelling reason we have to spend this money, other than the deadlines that were imposed on us, basically.
December
several years.
31st of 2024.
Exactly. So we have plenty of time at this point, other than the need for some of these projects to be initiated, whatever they might be. But I absolutely agree that we need to make sure we have a process involving public input in this. By then, we will be opened up to,
Mhm.
and meetings, so we may have some other subsequent public meetings to talk about specifically that project. That would, if
Right.
you would agree.
Oh, yeah.
We'll make it clear, this is the first of many.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't see us being we are ultimately the final decision makers, but I think we should have input from a broad cross-section of the community about how the funds should be used.
Well,
And certainly, we have projects that are necessary
Priority.
projects and priorities that should be done. To the extent that we have dollars that are not going to be obligated on those projects, I would like to see it
Sure.
open to public input.
It appears that at the state level, they've determined, and they're using the same criteria, that you can do a lottery to encourage people to vaccinate. I'm just going to say, at least from my personal perspective, that's not on the
No,
table
yeah.
for Medina County. I'm just saying.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Bill,
Just saying.
Tuesday is the 25th, Tuesday.
Is it the 25th? All right. So I got to start telling people the right date and time.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Anything else that we have to come before us, other than I need to change my calendar?
No,
All right,
me
so-
too, I got both, so I got to
Motion
move
to-
on. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Hambley?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.